This chapter is called The 100% Win Rate Illusion. If you've ever searched for the perfect system, this is probably about you. At some point, every serious trader starts chasing certainty instead of probability, and that's where things start breaking. The 100% win rate illusion. Experienced traders don't chase a 100% win rate because they're naive. They chase it because certainty feels safer than randomness. If you ask almost any trader with 5 to 10 years in the market whether they've searched for a perfect strategy, most will admit they have. I was no different. At some point, curiosity quietly turns into obsession. You stop trading and start hunting. You become a kind of mad scientist, backtesting endlessly, studying years of charts, barely stepping away except to eat or sleep. Every new idea feels like it might be the one, not because it makes more money, but because it promises relief from uncertainty. I was fortunate in one way. Pattern recognition came naturally to me. Since going full time in 2017, I spent so many hours studying price action that it followed me into my sleep. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning with sudden realizations, what felt like downloads. I'd get out of bed, draw candles, write notes, test ideas. Many of those ideas worked. I built strategies with strong win rates. I backtested them. I named them. I shared them with my students. And yet, underneath all of that competence, the question lingered. What if there's something better? What if there's a pattern that repeats daily, weekly, something close to perfect? That question didn't come from logic. It came from control. The truth is, the more experienced you become, the harder losses are to tolerate. Not because they hurt financially, but because they contradict your self-image. You start believing that consistency comes from better logic, tighter filters, more confluence. But what you're really doing is trying to remove uncertainty from an uncertain environment. At some point, I had to make peace with a simple fact. Probability does the heavy lifting, not perfection. Confluence aligns, entries trigger, stops and targets are set, then probability takes the wheel. My stops became non-negotiable, not because I lacked confidence, but because confidence without boundaries turns into arrogance. Even on my best setups, rules stayed intact. No widening stops, no exceptions fueled by overconfidence. Ironically, my best stretches of performance didn't come from refining systems further. They came from accepting small losses without emotional resistance. Trading doesn't reward daily gratification. It rewards process fidelity over time. The idea of getting 1% better every day only matters if that 1% is psychological, not technical. Letting yourself get stopped out and walking away, that's progress. Taking partials and honoring break-even, even when price runs, that's progress. Standing down when conditions aren't clean, that's progress. Eventually, you'll have days where one move pays for an entire week or month, not because you found the Holy Grail, but because you stopped fighting uncertainty. There is no 100% win rate system, and even if one existed, human execution would destroy it. Early entries, late exits, emotional interference. After years of profitable trading, I still had to accept this truth. Losses are inevitable, and so are streaks. The work isn't eliminating them. The work is showing up each day without trying to control what can be controlled. That's when consistency actually begins. What I would tell my younger self. If I could go back and sit with the version of myself who was obsessed with finding the perfect strategy, I wouldn't tell him to work harder or study more charts. I wouldn't tell him the answer was another setup or another refinement. I would tell him that the reason he's chasing perfection has almost nothing to do with trading and everything to do with what uncertainty does to the human mind. Most traders think they want a 100% win rate because they want more money, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is that certainty feels emotionally safer than randomness. The brain wants closure. It wants guarantees. It wants to feel like if you do everything correctly, you'll always be rewarded. Trading doesn't work like that, and that's what makes it so psychologically demanding. You can execute perfectly and still lose. You can follow your rules and still hit a losing streak. The market will never give you the comfort of knowing. So what do traders do? They start trying to remove uncertainty from an environment that is built entirely on probability. They add more filters, more indicators, more rules, more confluence. They convince themselves that if they just find the right combination, losses will disappear. But what they're really doing is negotiating with something that cannot be negotiated with. They aren't searching for edge, they're searching for emotional relief. That's what I would tell my younger self. You are not trying to become a better trader, you are trying to escape discomfort. And once that becomes the motive, the entire process gets distorted because the desire to be right turns into an identity problem. Winning becomes proof, losing becomes personal. A stop loss stops being a normal part of variance and starts feeling like an insult. That's when execution breaks down, not because the strategy failed, but because the trader is no longer trading price action, they're trading their self image. This is why psychology isn't some optional layer on top of trading, it is the foundation. The market doesn't punish you for being wrong, it punishes you for reacting poorly to being wrong. Losses are not the real threat. Resistance to losses is. The need for certainty is. The need to feel in control is. Over time, you realize that probability does the heavy lifting, not perfection. Even the best setup is still a percentage. Your job is not to eliminate losing trades. Your job is to eliminate emotional distortion when losing trades happen. That is the real work. That is what creates longevity. If I could speak to my younger self, I would tell him to stop asking the market for certainty because it will never give it. Uncertainty is the entire reason trading pays. Losses are the cost of doing business. Randomness is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. The traders who last aren't the ones who win every day. They're the ones who can lose cleanly. They're the ones who can take a stop and still feel the same internally. They don't spiral. They don't tighten. They don't turn one trade into a referendum on who they are. Consistency doesn't come from eliminating uncertainty, it comes from becoming stable inside it. And once you accept that fully, the obsession fades, the illusion fades, and trading becomes what it was always supposed to be, a long-term game of probability, execution, and self-control. If this resonated, the full audiobook is available now on Spotify and the Kindle and paperback copy on Amazon.